Welcome to Stone Cold Stros. I'm Brandon Strange with Charlie Palullo, Josh Jordan. You can find them on X at Palullo and at Josh Jordan 975. And in between episodes of our show here, you can read their work on sportsmap.com. On today's episode, Houston takes another series from a first place team. Is this offensive production a sign of things to come or just an optical illusion? Altuve finds himself in the number 2 hole, phrasing. And we discussed the long-awaited return of Lance McCullers. The last season he pitched, Houston won a chip. I asked the guys if I should plan up the parade. Just a reminder to hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications so you know as soon as new content drops. And if you're on the go, we're on all your favorite podcast apps where you can listen to us. Just search Stone Cold Stros. So, gents, the season, as they say, is a marathon, not a sprint, so we have to judge it by the various legs of the race. This past week and a half has certainly had a tonal change. Houston Sandwiches dropping 2 of 3 to the Royals between the sweep of the Jays and taking 2 of 3 from the first place Tigers. Over the past 8 games, Christian Walker, Isak Paredes, and Jeremy Pena have all been hitting over 300, slugging over 550, and each have an OPS of at least 940. Pena was already having a good season, but obviously the standout from those 3 is Christian Walker, who's struggled mightily. He gives Houston in this short sample size the production they hoped he would be giving them all along. He's still well underwater for his season averages, and he'll need to put together a pretty productive stretch to right that ship. But I ask you this, are we ready to breathe a sigh of relief and chalk up Walker's early season performance to just some growing pains as he's adjusted to a new team?
Not entirely. And he had a nice pocket of games, and then the Wednesday finale against the Tigers occurred. So, yeah, he had that stretch where he hit about 300 over 9 games, but the rest of the season he's batting 143. There's still just not consistency. He's striking out way too much. Yordan's numbers aren't nearly as bad as overall. Walker's are, but the expectations for Yordan are rightfully much higher. Yordan Alvarez has been a huge problem for the Astros offense through April. But with the calendar clicking over the month on Thursday, May Day means just that, May 1st, as opposed to May 1, 2024, where it was edging closer to May Day. What's going on with the Astros? Kudos to the number setters, right? When we discussed at the outset of the season, all right, end of April, the over-under number on Astros wins 16, which would mean 16-14. And here we are going into the weekend. Mayflowers and the Chicago White Sox both should bring some smiles to Astros fans' faces. Getting to face those White Sox, seeing McCullers on the mound Sunday, and 16-14 paces out to about an 87-win regular season, which is frankly what this ball club looks about to be to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's going to win with pitching if things continue the way they are. You mentioned Yordan. I mean, we're at a point right now where 4 other Astros have more home runs than him. Who would have thought that would actually be the case? But that's true. The Christian Walker thing really, especially after the 0-for-5 game and the finale against the Tigers, it made me really start looking at Christian Walker a little closer. Like, what's going on here just with the strikeouts and just how often he would come up with guys on base and just hasn't been able to get it done. First, the thing we were hearing with Walker was he gets off to a slow start traditionally, right? We kind of heard that. That was kind of the narrative. So I went to look like, is that actually true? So this year, March and April, he's at 196, slug at 355, 632 OPS. Look at last year. He was slugging almost 500 with an OPS of almost 900 for March and April. And then I even went back the year before. Is that a fluke? No, in 2023, he was slugging over 400 for March and April too. So that's not really a correct narrative. He was really good in March and April before he came over to the Astros. So, then you kind of start thinking, well, what about like the clutch factor? Why is he seemingly coming up to the plate and not getting it done? Is it just the eye test? I'm a fan that's upset. No, he's hitting 143 with runners in scoring position this year. It's over 33 plate appearances with 15 strikeouts. So with runners in scoring position, he's almost striking out half the time. I mean, it'd be nice to get a sac fly every now and then. It doesn't always have to be a base hit. And then I broke it down a little more. With men on second base this year, he's batting 0. With men on third base this year, he's batting 0. Men on second and third this year, 0. Bases loaded, you guessed it, 0. I mean, this is absolutely alarming. And then I checked it, like, what are his clutch stats? What do those look like this year? With 2 outs, with runners in scoring position this year, he's hitting 125 with 7 Ks. Late and close in games, 7th inning and later in a close ball game, hitting 056. That's across 18 plate appearances. Not the biggest sample size, but enough to make you wonder. So I was like, is this a clutch thing with him just this year, or is this something that he's dealt with before in his career? So I looked at 2024, 2 outs with runners in scoring position, not as bad, but 217, not the greatest batting average, but at least he was slugging over 400 in those. Late and close last year, 141 with a 250 slug. So there appears to be kind of a clutch issue with Christian Walker, at least over the last couple of years. Let's just compare that to Altuve last year. We kind of think of Altuve as being a pretty clutch hitter, right? And he is. Last year with 2 outs, runners in scoring position, Altuve 275 with the 888 OPS. Late and close last year for Altuve, over 300 with an 854 OPS. So, I mean, these are like the two total opposite ends of the spectrum between these two guys. So I think part of it is he had 20 walks last year by this point in the season. He only has 9 this year. So he's walking half as much. I think that's a big part of it there. So with Christian Walker, we're starting to see some signs where this might be kind of who he is. I think the only thing we can hope for, maybe the batting average doesn't get much better in these clutch situations, but maybe he can get back to where his slugging and his OPS was, where at least when he does hit the ball, he provides you with some thump and some production.
Well, at least he's dropped his strikeout pace to below 200 for the season. That's at 194 heading into the Chicago series. Now, Christian Walker, undeniably, has been a very good offensive player, or was the last 3 seasons with the Diamondbacks, but he's always had holes as a hitter. That's why he's a 250 career hitter, a tick under 250, right? He's going to strike out 130 times if he plays 150 games. He's not an elite guy in the batter's box. He's been a good one until the Astros. Josh, you compile all that data from the back of baseball cards, by the way?
I did. I got it from Dana Brown.
The striking out virtually every other official at bat with runners in scoring position. Yikes. Then you throw in, he bounces into 3 double plays the last 2 games of the Tigers series. At least the strikeouts just one at a time, unless you get to strike him out, throw him out. So you went in on Walker. I'll amplify a little bit on Yordan. It's a 30-game stretch, but we count March with April. It's silly to consider March as a separate entity, as a month where it's just the 2-3 games, depending on how the calendar starts the season. Yordan just finished the 2nd worst month of his career. August 22, he had an OPS worse. 2022 actually ended up just okay for Yordan. He only hit 192 in that postseason. But man, starting it with the Game 1 home run against the Mariners and then basically ending it with the 6th inning Game 6 home runs against the Phillies. But Yordan in 2023, he didn't have a single month where his OPS was under 900. Last year, his worst month, OPS was 776 in May, a month in which he knocked in a total of 4 runs. Well, Yordan's sitting on 670 heading into this season. And it's on Yordan and I guess Cintron and Snitker to figure this out, right? We're not hitting coaches and we're not playing them on a podcast. So whether it is timing, whether it's weight shift, whether he's just not seeing the ball right, they're out of excuses with the batter's eye. They changed the color to that this year, again, to black from a deeper shade of green. A couple of numbers that really jump out on Yordan. Runners in scoring position, he's kind of been the anti-Walker, right? Yordan's been a bad player so far this season because he's adds nothing defensively, right? He's only played 6 games in left field. And as a base runner, he's okay for a big guy, but he's not a plus factor running the bases. So Yordan, it's what he does in the batter's box. And 670, not good. But 7 for 18 with runners in scoring position. 389, small sample size, but 14 runs batted in and 18 at bats. So Yordan, as bad as he's been, pays to drive in 97 runs. And last year, he drove in 86 all season. But with the bases empty, I don't know if this categorizes more as fluke than, hey, attention deficit issues in the batter's box. If there are no stakes out there, no ducks on the pond, is Yordan not engaged? With the bases empty, He's batting 107, 6 for 56. You get more than 3 times as many as bats Yordan has this season with the bases empty as you do with runners in scoring position. 107, 6 for 56 is jarring. And that the Astros are over 500 on the back of the pitching, clearly, but still borderline amazing when you go by Baseball Reference's WAR, which isn't a totally defining statistic, but it's an accepted benchmark statistic. Yordan and Garner are negative WAR players so far. Altuve and Christian Walker are each at 0. People go, well, how does Walker 0? The defense props him up some. Mm-hmm. So what you'd think of as the core 4 in this lineup, plus Isaac Paredes, 4 guys collectively are a negative. Alvarez, Altuve, Walker, and Garner. Yet here they sit at 16 and 14, so it could obviously be better, but it could be a hell of a lot worse.
You mentioned Altuve, so let's talk about him. As we talk about the themes to the long season, another has been questions surrounding Jose Altuve. First, we were all eyes were on left field. Now we transition from left field over to the 2 spot in the lineup. The team is saying Altuve offered this move to hit number 2 in the order. I don't want to poison the well with a leading question here, so I'm just going to simply ask what your thoughts are on Altuve moving to the 2 spot.
I absolutely take it on face value that but this one goes into the wheelhouse of people who will laugh at baseball players. How do you ever get tired? All you do is stand around in the field for most of the game, and it's not like you're taking hits all the time. That Altuve cited, that long run in from left field costing him seconds to prepare for that at bat in the bottom of the first inning. The recently passed Ricky Henderson must already be spinning in his grave. Are you kidding me? I can't lead off because I have to run in all the way from left field. As the Astros go on this road trip, should they move the home dugout to the third base side to shorten that in and out? And then, of course, the first game where Pena goes to the leadoff spot, Altuve's batting second. Altuve hits a home run. Now, it wasn't in the first inning. That's the only inning where you can dictate that you're going to be the first guy up. And after that marathon in from left field and not having enough time to get settled going into the batter's box. So kind of amusing, but the Yogi Berra quote, 90% of this game is half mental. If it gives Altuve a little more peace of mind for that first at bat, okay. But of course, the second game in the 2 spot, he didn't get the ball out of the infield in 4 at bats. The critical element in conjunction with Altuve going to the 2 hole is, will Jeremy Pena warrant being in the leadoff spot? And thus far, 2025 Jeremy Pena, the answer is yes. He's faster than Altuve. He's a vastly better base runner than Altuve, but the most important part is getting on base to begin with. Pena is up to 355 in on base percentage. Last year, Altuve was 350. Pena now up to double-digit walks, 10 already this season. That's a pace for 54. All last season, he drew 25. So if he's going to more than double his walk output and be a 350 on base guy, Jeremy Pena should now be the Astros leadoff hitter with Altuve dropped to the 2 spot. Not purely because Jose thinks maybe it'll jumpstart him and the ball club.
Remember, I argued that I wanted Pena to hit leadoff on one of our podcasts. Maybe it was right before the season began. And I felt like it would give the offense some juice. It would give Pena an opportunity to see more fastballs, that kind of thing. And then Charlie made a great argument. He's just like, you want to get your best hitters at the top of the lineup because they get the most at bats. Well, now Pena has the highest OPS on the team. He basically is your best hitter. So it makes a lot of sense now for him to be hitting first and to get more opportunities. And we know about the speed and him saying he wanted to get 50 stolen bases. I don't think he's going to get quite there, but I love Pena in the leadoff spot. I think it gives the lineup a little bit more length and it gets some speed on base for Altuve and for Yordan. And I actually like Paredes hitting behind Yordan because pitchers know that he's going to see some pitches, and whatever happens against Paredes, you're going to have to work to get him out. He's not just going to pop out on the first pitch he sees. So I kind of like how this is stacking up for the Astros. I think that's the thing, where we get back to Walker. It's just, he's up so often in these clutch situations. If he can just get going, because he's on he's sitting there up at the plate with guys on base. If he finally starts coming through, I think they can take off. And the fact that they're where they are with them playing so poorly, once they start clicking, I think the Astros could really take off. I don't think they're going to be with Yordan and Walker and Yiner playing this poorly as we go forward. I think eventually something's going to click.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, right? That if your best hitter, Yordan Alvarez, is going to be poor, and your cleanup hitter almost every day, Christian Walker, is going to be poorer, you can't have a high-quality lineup. So that's the 1-2 punch, and then throw Yiner into the combination where they just have to be better. And I want to mention, for anyone who wanted to go after the broadcaster, podcaster jinx element, the other day we extolled the virtues of the Astros defense, which has been so phenomenal. Only 3 unearned runs allowed the entire season. Yeah. And then Pena screws up a ball Wednesday, leads to 5 unearned runs, screwing over AJ Bluebaw's a big league debut. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, leave a hanger in there to give it up for a grand slam. And they're unearned runs, so I have no blame. But after giving up 3 unearned runs total in their first 29 games, they give up 5 in that loss on Wednesday. Trust us. I'll risk speaking for you guys. If we had the power to jinx, we would use it for much more significant purposes than messing up a team's unearned runs allowed total. At least I would. Maybe you guys are evil.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, bro. Well, trust me, it didn't go unnoticed, Charlie. I definitely was going to bring it up, so I'm glad that you got ahead of me on it. It's funny that we were scoffing at Jeremy Pena getting moved into the cleanup spot not that long ago, and now he's getting moved into the leadoff spot. He's getting bounced around like Dusty Baker's at the helm again, but obviously reacting and producing at a much higher clip than that. I mentioned that 8-game window in which both he and Paredes and also Walker have put up some production, but he's hit well outside of that. I mean, obviously he's 282 for the season, 791 OPS. As much as we talk about, guys regressing to the mean, and hopefully Yordan comes around and he produces at a clip that we're used to him, what do you feel about the normalization or the equilibrium of Jeremy Pena's performances right now?
I'm very encouraged by the walk stuff. We need more bulk to it. But his on-base percentage for his career is why he's been absolutely no better than mediocre as an offensive player, right? 308, 307, 308 last season, and for his career on-base percentage, that stinks. Absolutely, for a guy who you're thinking about hitting at the top of the order. But if the batting average is going to bump up slightly, and that on-base percentage because of the walk numbers, 355 is good. And then the other elements of his game that he brings to the table. And at age 27, there are sometimes unexpected career year leaps that guys make out of nowhere. But Pena in his career arc should now be in what is the absolute apex of his physical talents, a peak prime performance. If there's going to be further evolution in his game, the clock was ticking going into this season, and it's 30 games, not 130 games. But this version of Jeremy Pena, I mean, he's no Bobby Witt Jr. or once Gunnar Henderson gets straightened out. They're just higher level performers. But after that, if you're taking 3 all-star shortstops in the American League, Jeremy Pena rightfully gets in that conversation the way he's played through 30 games.
No, absolutely. And he showed that, I mean, in that playoff run, that he can be an elite player in that smaller sample size. It's just, could we ever get him to perform like that over a longer stretch? And maybe he's taken that next step. That's what we had a little worry about Walker, is his worst month last year was a 734 OPS, and he's at 632 now. So, but with Pena, I thought it was interesting that Altuve brought up, like, they need to extend this guy, right? And I mean, maybe, Altuve sees him every day. Altuve's probably noticing, like, maybe this guy's taking a step forward. Maybe this is something that he can replicate, and he can turn into one of these players with an on-base percentage around 350 and get up into 20 home runs. And I mean, right now he's the best offensive player on the team. Maybe Altuve saw that coming, but you wonder, is it too late now? If Pena does put on a great season, is he going to be another guy that's like, no, I think I can maintain this, and I'm going to wait till free agency? But we know they have all this money to spend after this next year when the money falls off the books. will the Astros actually open up the checkbook if Pena has an excellent year this year, or have they already missed it? Do they need to be looking for their next shortstop? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Altuve's saying anything has any weight? We saw it clearly didn't with Bregman.
Right. And I found it interesting in that Altuve decided to pipe up on that. Well, he'd been a bad player himself over the last 3 weeks. Says, hey, tend to your own garden. Pena is under Astros control for 2 seasons after this one. Right? He'll be 30 years old when he gets to be a free agent. I don't want to sign a shortstop at 30 to some 9 or 10-year mega type deal. But if they could come to a middle ground, if you wanted to tack on 3 years at $60 million, that wouldn't strike me as wildly beyond the market, or that you're insulting Pena with that kind of offer, right? He's a $4.4 million guy this season. He'll probably come close to doubling that next year, and then a final season before free agent eligibility, maybe in the $12 million range or so. But again, like with Hunter Brown, he's ways down the line, post 2028. I'm not going to sweat that, just like with Jeremy Pena.
The more you watch baseball,
27.
Yeah, the more I watch baseball, the more I realize I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, just because of the standpoint of, I think I would have been the last one to say that it was time to negotiate an extension with Jeremy Pena, because I felt like this was a show me season for Jeremy Pena of whether he still had a place on this team. Now he looks like one of the best hitters, at least through the first 30 games, looks like one of the best hitters and one of the best defenders on the team, which he's always been one of the best defenders on the team, but he's seemingly put it together with the bat in his hands. I would have said that the priority would have been to sign or extend Yainer Diaz. But now Yainer Diaz has planted a seed of doubt into my mind, given the first 30 games of his season. So it's funny, again, marathon, not a sprint, but the changing narratives around it. Now I really am curious as to how Yainer bounces back from this very, very slow start too, because he just hasn't received as much light, because so many guys have gotten off to such an unproductive start to their season. Just a quick message: if you're interested in advertising your service or product on this show, you can contact our friends on the sales team at houston.sportsmap.com/advertise. The link is in our description. Now, gents, we have spent the broad majority of this episode talking about batting, and we usually talk about pitching because of how elite the pitching's been. And we've been preaching the gospel of this pitching staff for the past several weeks, even going back to the preseason, where we said that this pitching staff had a chance to be special, especially the starters. But Luis Garcia suffered that setback, and we wondered if the staff was going to be deep enough, and could Houston put Wesneski through that Astros pitching car wash. And then into the season, Arrighetti broke his hand. But this pitching staff continues to respond and step up, and from the rotation to the pen, just be one of the best in baseball. Now Houston's poised to get back Lance McCullers Jr. and save for the inherent pessimism from social media. It's hard to not feel excited to see Lance get back and to not root for them. I mean, he's worked so hard to get back to this place, and he'll take the ball for the first time since 2022 on a major league game, coming full circle, pitching against the White Sox. And we want to be careful about our expectations, but we know that when Lance is healthy, he's a devastatingly good pitcher. So what do you guys think a realistic season for Lance McCullers looks like?
Boy. Well, for starters, let's hope that he doesn't start Sunday and then go back on the injured list Tuesday. That would be a nice first step. And he's kind of getting another minor league rehab start, but it's called his major league debut for 2025. I mean, the White Sox are just a laughing stock. They going into their Thursday matinee with the Brewers, batting .211 as a team with a .614 OPS. It's like your entire lineup was Jake Myers-ish. So McCullers, I mean, there's still more than 2/3 of the season left. 2/3 of a season workload for a regular full season starting pitcher would be about 20 starts. They're going to be very cautious with him. if you could offer me 15 McCullers starts and he's healthy at the end of September, I couldn't sign up quickly enough for that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. When he's been healthy, he's been good. He really has. I mean, his career ERA is around 3.5. So he's just one of those guys that he puts everything into it. You hope he doesn't get too jacked up with adrenaline and try and overdo it early in the season, because it'd be nice to have him at the end of the year, because who knows how Arrigetti's going to bounce back. Breaking your thumb on your throwing hand is kind of a big deal. I know quarterbacks do it all the time, but they're not throwing wicked breaking pitches. So I'm kind of cautiously optimistic with McCullers, and I like a lot of Astros fans probably haven't seen this yet, but his mechanics are a little bit different now that he's come back from the injury. His mechanics were a little more like Spencer Arrigetti's in the past, and now it doesn't feel like he's coming from out here as much. If you can see that, it feels more over the top and kind of condensed, and the leg kick looks a little higher. I'm not comparing him to Nolan Ryan, but his windup looks a little more like Nolan Ryan post the surgeries there. So I'm wondering if, he found something that's working for him. His velocity's been about right where it always has been, 93, 94 miles an hour. You just wonder if he has to go back to snapping off that many curveballs to be effective. How will that take a toll on his surgically repaired arm?
And you go back to good Lance, one inhibitor that always worked against him. He was very rarely a deep into the game starter, high pitch count guy, right? He always walks an above average number of guys. And so as he builds up still arm strength and just rhythm of going out there every sixth day or once per week, however they decide to try to use him, I don't think he's going to win many games. He can pitch well, but I don't think he's going to go 5 in his average start, at least for a while initially. But that's where that depth, if Arrigetti comes back end of May and McCullers is holding up and they don't incur other injuries, right? They already skipped a turn for Wesneski, just being cautious, playing the long game. Where if you have 6, 7 functional guys and you're willing to carry them all on the 26, because you're only going to want to shorten your bullpen so much, where they could pair up when Arrigetti initially gets back, and he and McCullers, if the two of them can give you 7 innings and minimize the need for depth relievers before the late game guys. So optimistically speaking, it would be a delightful problem for Joe Espada and Miller et al. to work through. But let's see Lance go through 2-3 starts without soreness, obviously with any sort of setback, and then the qualitative comes into effect, because you're not just going to keep him in his rotation endlessly because he's making $17 million and he's healthy, right? He's going to have to perform because they do have a list of alternatives.
And quickly, Luis Garcia, Dana Brown said this week that they expect Luis Garcia to pitch this season, but he also said he's still throwing off flat ground. So if he's not throwing off a mound yet, and we're already into May, you kind of wonder when that'll be. And Dana Brown is an optimistic person, so you have to kind of take what he says with a grain of salt. But he could have said like, oh, I don't know, we'll see. But he said, yeah, they expect him some point this season. And who knows? I hope they're not in a place where they need him. But if they do, we know what he can do when he's right.
And Christian Javier?
I'm not counting on that one.
No, and Dana Brown also said Tucker was going to be an Astro for life. Look, McCullers and the team have mentioned the mechanical issues, and they've spoken about it a little bit, and they were to fix, I think, what he called red flags in his delivery to make his delivery more, or his mechanics more sustainable, to help him to stay healthy over the long term. Final thoughts before we're out the door on this episode, guys.
I just want to take a moment to first salute Phil Garner and also the Astros for doing a very nice job Wednesday on Phil's 76th birthday, the first, I guess, full public disclosure that Scrap Iron's been battling pancreatic cancer for over a year now. And as one would expect from Scrap Iron, he's battling the hell out of it, was in great spirits Wednesday, had all his grandkids with him at the ballpark, and a number of players who played under Phil Garner managing the Astros. And clearly this era trumps anything the Astros have done historically before. But remember, Phil Garner, the first manager ever to skipper the Astros into the World Series, the amazing runs of 2004, 2005. And back in the day, I'm not saying, we go to dinner once per month or anything like that. But I got to know Phil through regular weekly conversations on the radio, and just as delightful and engaging a guy as I've encountered in sports, damn near unsurpassed as a storyteller. So it was great to get to catch up with Phil Wednesday. All the best to him. And as I said to him, 2029 will be the 50th anniversary celebration for the Pittsburgh Pirates of their World Series championship. The We Are Family team, Garner was a critical element of that, hit 500 in the World Series of that year for the Pirates. And I said, that great ballpark they have up there, let's make it a date. We'll be there in 2029 for that 50th anniversary. So the best to Phil Garner, and again, very nicely done by the Astros, saluting him and all they invited on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll leave it there. We wish Phil the best.
Good luck, Scrap Iron. One last reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click like on the video. And if you listen on podcasts and apps like Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating. We do appreciate it. Next scheduled episode drops Monday. So make sure you subscribe to this channel, Sports Map Houston, or other channel, Sports Map Texans. We drop emergency episodes as news breaks. So make sure those notifications are on. For Charlie and Josh, I'm Brandon saying so long. Until next time, go Stros.